Hey folks, Takota Coen here from Coen Farm. In this video I wanted to show you guys how we make our own feed for our pigs on farm. So we have a piece of equipment here called a mix mill. And essentially it's just a giant blender when you think about it. And what it has is there's these screens that are of different sizes. And this is the mill component. I've got the small screen in there right now. That's about a 3/16. And inside there are these little hammers. It's called a hammer mill. And so what happens is the grain comes down this auger here. So it goes from the bin up the auger into the top of the mill, and then those hammers inside the mill there spin around really, really fast. And then in order to fall through the screen into the auger below, it has to pass through whatever screen we've got in there before it gets sucked in to the actual mixing chamber here. And so, you know, when we're doing grain for our pigs, we always grind it really, really fine. So it's like a flour. So it's easier for the pigs to get more nutrients out of. For the chickens, we use a bigger screen like this one because chickens have a crop, and so they can actually grind their own feed themselves. But we also use this screen here for something else that's kind of unique, in that this mix mill has another attachment on it that allows us to actually grind small square bales. So this is called a bale feeder attachment, and typically it was actually designed to grind straw, because a lot of feedlots where they're feeding animals grain, if the animals are given straight grain, they'll eat too much and they'll actually die. And basically, there is no right amount of grain, because they either die quickly or they die slowly, because cows aren't designed to eat grain. But we've actually taken this piece of equipment here that was designed for something that was not meant for nature, and we're using it to grind up. We use second cut or first cut hay, which is really high in things like alfalfa and timothy and brome and sainfoin and legumes, dandelion leaves, whatever's out in our pastures, and we'll mix those small square bales into the feed itself. So, for example, when we first started doing this, we were going straight grain, which is what a lot of other producers do as well. And our pigs were getting straight grain. Then we started to ferment our feed. Then we started to add forage into the mix mill itself, just to see what would happen to the pigs. And over the last kind of 6 years, we've gone from 0 hay or forages mixed in with the grain to over 14 small square bales. So if folks have ever seen one of those, they're basically about 3 feet wide by 16 inches by 14. And so those, and they weigh about 50 to 60 pounds each. We've got 14 of them in there right now. You can see kind of in the chamber here, there's a lot of, all the hay and stuff is all chopped up in there. Now the other thing that this mix mill has is a little hopper on the back end with another auger that goes into the mixing chamber, and that allows us to add in minerals and salt and something else that we've added to our mix over the years, which is Bentonite Clay, which is this really fine powder. So we use a certified organic mineral that we get from our local feed store, and there's all kinds of basically enzymes and vitamins and minerals in there that and it's all soy free. It's really difficult to find any feed or supplements that are soy free these days, because it's just in everything. But the feed store that we've been working with has and a lot of other producers are having the same thing. A lot of our customers are actually deathly allergic to soy, even if it's organic soy. There's a lot of basically undigestible proteins, phytoestrogens. It's very high in phytic acid, oxalates, things like that. And for a lot of people who have digestive issues or leaky gut or Crohn's or anything like that, even if their animals have eaten soy, they'll get sick, even if the person isn't eating the soy themselves directly. So we use only soy-free certified organic mineral, and then we use a bentonite clay from Wyoming, and some salt that we get from Saskatchewan. And at the end of the video here, I'll turn this on and show you guys how all this stuff works and how it all pulls together. But the most important component obviously is the grain. And so we've got, in today's mix, we're doing 3 different kinds of grain here. Actually, there's way more than that, but mainly there's barley, and there's a few peas in this mix for some extra protein. There wasn't as much peas in this last bin because we ran out of peas when we were seeding this field. But this is a crop that we grew 2 years ago, and then in this bin over here, we've got Triticale, which is a pretty unusual crop. It's actually a cross between winter wheat and rye, which are both biennial crops, which means that in order to grow them, you need to seed them in the fall so that they go through a vernalization period, which is basically a cold period that stimulates the production of seed heads. So you have to plant them in the fall, and then you harvest them the next year. So they put on a little bit of growth, go dormant. The cold weather triggers them to put on seed heads the next year. It's a really nice crop, and we've been experimenting it. This crop we grew 3 years ago actually did quite well. We went about 40 bushels to the acre. Of course, no fertilizers, no herbicides, no nothing. And it's because it's related to wheat, it's very high in protein. It's like 13-14% protein, and it doesn't have a hull on it, so it's nice and digestible for pigs. And the other nice thing about it is because it's a biennial, it allows you to, in organic systems, if you're going to use tillage, it allows you to till at times of the year when you're less likely to, the temperatures are cooler, there's not as much rain, so it just works really well with organic systems and kind of increasing some of our crop diversity rotations. So now the other crop that we're just mixing right now is oats. So this is a crop that we didn't grow on farm. Just some oats here, and there's actually some hemp in there as well. This was again, one of our commitments to our customers is whatever we don't grow on farm, we purchase certified organic. So last year we had a drought, and we lost like 3 grain crops in a row because we had triticale, we had barley and peas, and we actually planted another swath grazing crop later in the year. And we lost all of them because it was the worst drought in 20 years. So we were forced to buy certified organic grain from a producer down in Calgary. And so we found these oats online, and because the organic producer, they actually had volunteer hemp in it from the year before crop. So it's actually, hemp is full of omega-3s. It's really high in protein. So we actually ended up, getting a bonus with, if they were to try to sell that crop into the conventional or the market, they would have got docked severely for it because it's not a very clean seed. But because it's just going for feed, it actually worked out really well for us. So we inside this mix mill, we basically put all these things in, and then if you come and check out the top here inside the mixing chamber, all those guys, the mineral, the forages, and all the different grain crops, they all come in and they get mixed up inside, ground and mixed inside this chamber. And basically there's just a big vertical auger here that's open at the bottom, so the minerals and the grain and stuff comes in at the bottom, and then it gets sucked up this vertical cone and thrown out around the side, and it just keeps mixing and cycling through, so you get a really nice even distribution of all the different things that you're mixing in. And so this piece of equipment has really allowed us to play around with the kind of feed that we're mixing on the farm here. It's allowing us to develop our own genetics. As I mentioned, over the past 6 years, we've gone from having 0 forages into the feed to now there's over 30% by weight of the feed that the pigs are getting is actually grass, on top of the grass that they go out and graze. Obviously, we're in one of our sacrificial pastures here by our hay shed there, but the pigs are out grazing out there right now, And as soon as I get this mixed up, we'll take it over to our integrated livestock system. This is the unloading auger. Be able to turn this guy out, put it into the bin, and then from then on, it's all gravity feed and 5-gallon buckets. So I only grind feed about once a month, depending on how fast the pigs are eating it. And so I only have to start a tractor once a month to basically feed all of our pigs, and then the rest is all hand labor. And of course, we don't just feed this flour to our pigs. We ferment it for 12 to 24 hours, 24 hours in the summertime, 12 hours in the wintertime. And we add in our raw Jersey milk, water. We ferment that in 5-gallon buckets so that it's basically a sourdough bread. For the same reason that sprouted and fermented foods are better for humans, it's the same reason for pigs. Their grains don't want to be eaten. You know, they've developed all these different evolutionary mechanisms to stop animals from eating them, because if an animal eats them, they don't get to grow. So they don't want to be eaten. And so one of the ways they do that is they developed anti-nutrients to basically poison animals if the seeds are eaten either too soon or if the animal eats too much of them. Now, some seeds actually need to pass through the stomach of an animal, and those are a bit different. But most of the grain crops, if they pass through the stomach of an animal, they're no longer viable. And so what indigenous cultures all around the world realized is that if they could use low-tech biological solutions like fermentation, like soaking, leaching, and nixtamalization when you're talking about corn, that they developed these really simple techniques for neutralizing those toxins so that people could eat these really nutrient-dense grains without the downside of the plant toxins. So that's all we've done is just mimic that with the fermentation process, and that's allowing us to use way less feed for our animals, and ensure that they're getting more nutrients out of the feed that they're eating, and also making sure that we're minimizing our dependency upon grain. So if you look at this grain bin here, that's about it's just over 1,300 bushels is one of these grain bins, and one of those right full would a bushel is basically a 5-gallon bucket roughly. So one of those grain bins right full, 1,300 bushels, is about as much grain as we used to use for a year's worth of pigs, which is about 30 to 35 pigs for everything. That includes raising the sows, getting the pigs from conception to harvesting. It would take about 1,300 bushels of grain. And from an organic, if you're buying that as organic, most organic grains are anywhere from $7 a bushel for barley to $15 to $20 some a bushel for something like peas or wheat. So like that Triticale there would be worth $20 some a bushel probably, and we're talking $20,000 for a year's worth of feed. And if I had to spend that much money on our feed for animals, there would literally be no profit. It would be negative profit for the amount of pigs that we're raising, and because of the high feed cost, there's really no number of pigs you could raise profitably, which is why a lot of producers are getting away from feeding organic grains. And this is not to say that organic grains shouldn't be that expensive. They should be. The expertise and the skill required to grow grains organically while building soil health and do it for a long period of time is very challenging, and those producers should be rewarded for the effort that they go to. And a lot of our certified organic producers that I've talked to, the current grain prices, even as high as they are, they're not even meeting their costs of production. So it's this really tricky catch-22, but this is why we're trying to develop genetics and other systems that allow us to use the least amount of grain possible, so that we can maintain our financial sustainability, but also minimize our dependency these grain crops because they're very energy intensive, and there's not a lot of land in the world that's suitable, that's less than 4 or 5 degree slope, so that there's no risk for soil erosion in low tillage organic systems. So, this is just a little taste of some of the systems that we've been developing on the farm, trying to work towards our goal of producing the most nutrient-dense food possible, but doing it in a way that is good for other people, good for the planet, and is done in a way that allows future generations to do the same thing going forward. And so that really is our entire goal. And grain is this amazing, it's an absolutely amazing crop. I mean, the fact that you can get 50 to 100 bushels of grain per acre. So basically, if we had in my earlier videos, I showed that the 12-acre field that we seeded this year to oats and peas, and 12 other cover crop species. If we have a good year, that single field, 12 acres, could fill one of these grain bins, which could be now, because of we're cutting back on how much grain we're feeding our pigs. There's the potential that one of these grain bins could last us up to 2 years, as we continue to minimize our pigs' dependency on grain and develop their digestive tracts to utilize more and more forages. So it's just really exciting the progress that we've seen in the last 5 or 6 years. And the amazing thing is every year our pigs get healthier. And we're still, like, the other indicators that we're looking for to make sure that our animals aren't being harmed from eating too much grass, is we're still having really good birth rates and conception rates. This year one of my sows had 12 piglets. Actually, she was a gilt. I only raised gilts, and I think the lowest one was 9. So we had really good litter sizes. The piglets, and this is the best part, is I'm raising pigs to the same size that conventional hog producers are. So in 6 to 7 months, with a fraction of the grain, like less than a third of the grain, and the grain that we're feeding is much lower quality, because a lot of these other producers are feeding soy and canola meal because it's very high in protein, very high in fat. But I've spoken with hog producers that have since shut their operations down. The animals that come out of those systems are full of cancerous growths, tumors, lesions. Their stomachs inside are just torn apart from the same inflammation that humans get when they eat these kinds of foods. Things like colitis, irritable bowel syndrome. These pigs are getting it in only 6 months of life because they're pushing these animals so hard. And so yet in that system where there's so much energy, they're in temperature controlled barns with power running to them 24/7. Never goes below basically 20 degrees Celsius or above 20 degrees Celsius, no matter what time of year it is. All their feed, all their water is brought to them, and their manure is a toxic waste that has to be taken out somewhere else. In our system, our pigs are outside 365 days of the year. They go from plus 40 degrees in the summertime to minus 40 degrees in the winter. There's no temperature controlled. The only power that they use is in the wintertime. We have a little, I think it's a 250 watt heater, which is 2 light bulbs that runs a little electric water heater to make sure that the pigs, chickens, and cows always have access to water. And that's it. And we're feeding less than a third of the grain. No soy, no canola, no genetically modified foods whatsoever. All of the grain that they're being fed has 0 fertilizers applied to it, and we're doing it in the same amount of time. And the pork is no comparison. If you buy pork chops from the grocery store, they're basically white and pale. If you look at our pork chops, you can go on our website and check them out. But or any of our pork cuts, you'll see that our pork is darker than a lot of people's beef is, if it was feedlot beef. And so, it's really interesting to see how it's taken us a lot of years to develop these systems, but every year it gets better. Our animals are getting healthier. and we're producing more and more nutrient-dense food. But like I said, we're doing it in a way that allows other people to do it in the future too, which it's this concept of the 7 generations. And I'm just going to actually hop over onto the neighbor's land here and show you guys something, because it's just really interesting. A lot of people don't think about this, but in just terms of why we should be getting away from grain. But I'll just, picture's worth 1,000 words, so we'll just check it out. So if you look behind us here, I want to show you guys this. There's actually a creek that runs, a culvert that runs right through here. So this is the start of Meeting Creek, that eventually feeds into the Battle River watershed. So as soon as we come across the road here, that's what the creek looks like. It has been completely deforested, and they're farming right up to the riparian areas. All the trees are gone, and it's just interesting. If you look out, it looks like that's canola planted this year. But right now, today is July 17th, so we are 4 days away from the longest day of the year. The longest day of the year is the day that we can basically capture the most solar energy possible. And photosynthesis is the process through which plants, these little solar panels here, they're able to take carbon dioxide from the air, mix it with solar energy and photons and water from the root systems, and through this amazing alchemical process called photosynthesis, they're able to produce sugars and oxygen. And but all that requires soil minerals, that requires water, it requires solar energy, and it requires some kind of a leaf surface to be able to do that. So we look over at this industrial agricultural system over here, we can see that it's the longest day of the year almost, and the crop is barely out of the ground. Like, the solar panel is just starting to come online now, whereas in our place, our pastures and even our cropland, because of the diversity of crop that we put in, our solar panel is always turned on. And so it's like, if we're concerned about climate change and global warming and or just pollution, we're concerned about water quality, and we're concerned about all the health issues that are plaguing people right now. Like, the World Health Organization estimates that 100% of humans on the planet today will have cavities at some point in their life. Cavities are actually a disease. Like, they're classified as a chronic degenerative disease that's caused from a lack of nutrition. And so the same degradation that's happening on our landscape is also happening to our health. And on our farm, we believe that we're literally eating ourselves and our planet to death. And the only thing we can do to stop both these problems is to start eating the change we want to see in the world. And so if you believe that humans are the most, if you know that humans can do this, they can take this beautiful thriving landscape, they can rip all the trees off the hills, they can pollute the water, they can spray right through the riparian areas, they can apply 100 pounds of fertilizer per acre per year, which is the equivalent of 100 gallons of diesel per acre, and they can cause soil erosion on a massive scale, where this crop this year will produce more soil erosion than it does in weight of crop. And I think it was Franklin D. Roosevelt who said the soil, a nation that destroys its soils destroys itself. And so, if we want to continue as a species on this planet, we have to change how we're living in the world. But the exciting thing is that we can be just as regenerative as we are destructive. And so, if we can do all this to a landscape, we also have the capacity to turn it back into this. And this is what we're trying to do on our farm. We're trying to increase the nutrient density of our food, and we're doing that through increasing the biodiversity of our ecosystems, and because that's the only way that we can achieve that goal and a healthy human habitat in a way that allows future generations to do that as well. So I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. If you have any questions about the feed mix that we're making for our pigs, feel free to add that in the comments below, and or send me a personal message or anything like that. I'm happy to talk about if you're a producer and you want to know the specifics about the ration that we're making. And I've got 4 or 5 years worth of data showing how we slowly built up our pigs' ability to eat this ration, and all of the data on how our pigs are growing. So yeah, if you guys want to see any of that stuff, just ask me for it and I'll be happy to provide it. If you guys have any other ideas for videos you'd like me to do in the future, send me a message, leave a comment, and I'll be happy to do those as well. And please, if you like this video, please hit like, please share, please subscribe or follow us online. It really helps me know what people are enjoying, what they're not enjoying, and helps encourage me to keep going. So with that, I'm going to actually turn this mix mill on and show you guys just how the whole system works, and then we'll go from there. If you got your volume turned on, you might want to turn that down. I'm not going to edit this video, so I'll go around once more and show you guys everything as it's working. So thanks so much. I'll talk to you guys later.